Hello everyone, my name is Elle and welcome to a massive palette declutter. I mentioned this in a previous video. I just said that I was going to be doing a palette declutter at some point, and I think almost every single comment on that video was please film and share that declutter when you do it. So I am going to attempt to do that. This is going to be a very long video because there's a lot of palettes. I even picked up little things like trios and stuff, just so that I could work through as much as possible because I have too much stuff that's not being used. I'm ready to let go of a lot of things. So a few disclaimers before we get into this as usual. These are products I bought with my own money. I was not sent anything unless it was from a friend or family member. So that might have an impact on the way that I view things. I'm also not looking to sell anything. Just want to say that as well, and I'm not looking to give stuff away, just because I feel like a lot of the stuff I'm going to be getting rid of is stuff that is probably old or just not stuff that I would really want to recommend, that I'd want to give to somebody else. I am also not sure, to say at the very beginning, how much I'm actually going to be getting rid of. I've done declutter videos in the past, and sometimes people are really upset that you don't get rid of everything, and I think that's because those people might be used to seeing the declutters from the big YouTubers who get sent PR from like every single company. And if you get sent so much stuff that you can't possibly even use it, of course you're going to be getting rid of a lot more stuff than like an average consumer. I'm definitely not average, and I do film YouTube videos, so I don't really think that's going to be much of a consideration for whether or not I keep some things, but just, again, that disclaimer. All right, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's begin. Oh my god, this is a tower of eyeshadows. I'm going to try and get everything to focus as best as I can. Also, disclaimer, my nails are going to be kind of grungy throughout this because I'm handling palettes and opening and closing things. And if you're one of those magical creatures that can have flawless nails even after handling products, kudos to you. It's not me. All right, so the first thing I have here is this trio from Elle. This is the Sculpting Silk Eyeshadow in Rosé All Day. This is fairly new to me. I got this over the summertime. So you can see it's barely used. I think I really only used it during that tutorial. But I'm going to hang on to it for now. It's new. I remember liking it. So that's the middle shade of the palette there, the trio. It's pretty good. It's pretty good quality. Here's another little palette I have here. This is the Shade and Light Eye palette from Kat Von D, and this is the Sage one. So I had worked on this one previously, and this one's a little bit shadowy just because of the way the packaging is. You can't open the mirror more than that, but you can see that there's 4 shadows in there. I have pan on one of them, but this is like the worst for fallout. I've wanted to get rid of this one for a long time. I've had a lot of people tell me just to get rid of it because I really just dislike the formula. I hope that this is not what the rest of Kat Von D's formula is like, because one of my favorite palettes is the Mi Vida Loca palette. But yeah, I'm going to declutter this one. It's time to say goodbye. So the next palette I just grabbed here is from Too Faced. This is the Semi-Sweet Chocolate Bar palette. You guys have probably seen this many, many times before on various channels. I'm sure it's nothing new. You can see that I've used this palette a bit, just a little bit. It's a little bit used, but I really enjoy using this palette. I like the Too Faced formula. It's not one of my favorites, but I have liked what I've used before, so I'm definitely going to keep this one, and hopefully I'll get more use out of it. I'm just not a big neutral eyeshadow person in the semi-sweet sort of sense. This is a really old palette from Urban Decay. Really old. It's got like the purple velvet packaging and this odd metallic stuff there. I'm not sure what the name of this palette is. So I completely just mangled this palette. I used some of the shades that were in here for my Franken palette, which is actually in this mess somewhere, and I will show you guys that. But you can see where I used Fishnet, Graffiti, Shag, and Peace in that palette. And then there's a few shades left here. So my hand is totally going to be full of swatches. I have makeup wipes beside me so that I can I can show you guys, but those two swatches right here, that's Scratch, the pink, and that's Underground. I'm not loving it. I'm not loving it. Like, I didn't swatch it and just think, wow, I have to keep that because I'm going to use it. So I'm going to declutter what's left of this. Alright, so I just tried to change some of my camera settings to see if it would work better because I felt like a lot of stuff might have been blurry out of focus. So the next palette I have here is another one from Urban Decay. This is the Gwen Stefani palette. I have to be very careful showing you guys this palette because some of the shadows are loose. You can see one of them, Bathwater, it was loose on the top there and it actually crumbled on me. So I have to kind of hold it at a weird angle. You can just see some of it fell. I really do like this palette. That shadow has prevented me from using it more just because it is so messy. So I might have to do something to it. I don't really want to try and crumble it up and repress it, but I might have to, or just get rid of it altogether just because I really enjoy the rest of this palette. Again, sorry, I can't really tilt it up all the way or the shadows will just drop everywhere, but it's a really good neutral palette and there's some pretty nice sort of cooler shades as well. I don't really care about the pops of color down here. It's the neutral shades that I like the most. I am going to keep that palette as well. I just need to do something with that shade. The next palette I have here is from Urban Decay. Again, I have a lot of Urban Decay. This is the Naked Smoky palette, and I know a lot of people don't really like this palette, and when you look at it you can kind of see it's not that exciting. You can see the one shadow I've used the most, this gold shade here called Dirty Sweet. Dirty Sweet is just a beautiful, beautiful eyeshadow. One of my favorite golds. You can see what it looks like there. I absolutely love that shadow. Absolutely love it. There are some shades in here that I do like. I feel like this is a palette that I might get more use out of. Like, I'll swatch a few more shades just to, like, the quality is not peak Urban Decay, but it's not bad. Like, those are the matte shades there. You can see they're a little bit patchy in swatches, but on the lid they apply pretty well. I don't know, it's just because it's a cooler toned shadow that I wasn't reaching for it as much. Like, it's just a cooler palette, but I like it. You know, I can't get rid of this one, even just because there's a few shades that I do like. I have an Inglot palette here. This was a collaboration with Crystal Clear Makeup. She's a Canadian influencer. I'd never tried Inglot shadows before. I really like her, so I wanted to get her collab. I haven't used these that much. Inglot shadows seem pretty nice. I really wanted to try them, and this palette definitely makes me want to try more of their shadows. Like, those are the two shimmery shades right there. See if you guys can, if I can get a better look at them. The angle's kind of weird here, and the lighting's kind of not my usual setup. But yeah, they're really pretty shadows. This is new. I just got this a couple months ago. It's also a reusable palette. So I can depot these shadows if I want to, if I finish them. I mean, good luck with that. There's a huge pans, but this is a reusable palette as well, so I'm gonna keep that one. A few things I'm probably going to keep just to get out of the way. This is a MAC palette. This is one of the pre-assembled ×15 palette. This is the Cool Neutrals palette. I'm gonna keep that one, and this is one of my custom MAC palettes. It's not very cohesive. This is just a bunch of my random ones that don't fit into my neutral custom palette. So these are just some of my favorite shades that I really like using. MAC shadows are some of my absolute favorite to use. So that's not something I'm getting rid of. I just had everything in a pile. Oh, there's the warm neutral ×15 palette. So I'm gonna keep that as well. The only shadows I didn't put into this pile here was Subculture from Anastasia, the Yes Please palette from ColourPop, because those are in my project Pan Porn and I'm still working on them, and the MAC Burgundy ×9 palette, because that's in my Pan That palette. But everything else that I could easily find is here. Okay, so the next thing I have here, again, from Urban Decay. This is a Vice palette, and I feel like I'm going to be keeping this one, even though this one is one of the hardest ones to use. I do reach for it now and then, as you can probably tell from this mess right here. This is the shade Flame. I love using Flame wet. It's so beautiful. It doesn't really apply well dry at all, like not at all, but when you apply it wet, oh my god, it's stunning. It's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards that palette in the first place. There's also some really nice greens in the palette as well that I reach for. I'm very particular and very fussy with my green eyeshadows, and when I find ones that I like, I tend to stick with them. And there's one in this palette in particular called Grasshopper. Now my hand is a little bit wet because I just had to wipe off some of the swatches, but that's Grasshopper. And it's just this stunning green eyeshadow that I love using this one. It's such an easy shade to put all over the lid. There's a cooler green shade in there as well that I will also use. So there's some shadows in here that I do use, and some things, like there's a few things that I'm not crazy about, but I'd say the majority of this palette are things that I would use and I have used. There's not a lot of use on them as opposed to some of the other palettes of mine you might see. This is the Vice LTD Reloaded palette, and I have pan on a couple of these shades as well. Road Stripe on the top with a big pan, that's one of my favorite shadows. You can see a dip in Gash. Asphyxia is a shadow I use a lot. This purple shade right here. There's also some greens in this palette as well that I like. I wish it was possible to like mix everything together into one palette. Just have a perfect palette. A custom Vice palette. So those are two more green shades here from the Vice LTD Reloaded palette that I also like to use. Acid Rain and Mildew. That's the darker one, is Mildew. So those are more shadows that I like. So there's actually quite a bit in the Vice LTD Reloaded palette that I use as well. It's definitely a palette that I reach for more often than others. I have the Naked 2 Basics palette. So I have pan on all of these shades here. I like it better now that I've used so much of it. When I was first starting to use it, I found it very, very powdery. But I like it more now on the rare occasion I've used it. I like cooler neutrals. I do have the original Naked Basics palette. This is the first one. This is the only palette that I've completely panned and then repurchased. I love this palette. This is like a holy grail palette. If I lost every item in my makeup collection, God forbid, this would be the first eyeshadow palette I'd buy. Just because it's such a good palette. It's so reliable. I can just do so much with it, and it's effortless. Love this palette. Let's do some more Urban Decay, shall we? I know a lot of my palettes are dirty. They're not like dirty, they just have like powder on them because, well, they're eyeshadow palettes. Ooh, look at that reflection. Wow. This is the After Dark palette. This guy, I don't know, guys. So I bought this palette before I finished panning the Vice LTD palette when I was still trying to be completely brand loyal to Urban Decay, because I felt like that was my thing. I was like, I have to be loyal to Urban Decay. People expect that of me. I have to buy every single eyeshadow palette. And I just didn't need to, and I don't need to do it. And I've actually resisted quite a few palettes since then. I really evaluate palettes on a case-by-case basis, and not just because of the brand anymore. Because just because I like the brand and I like the formula doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going to like the palette. And to be completely honest, there's only one shadow in this whole palette that I like. Only one. And that's the shade Alter. The rest of them, I feel like the dark shades on the bottom are just not things that I ever use. So that's Alter. Don't know how well that's showing up there since it's such a light shade, but basically I would use this as like a highlight shade. But I feel like it's really similar to like Thunderstruck from Kat Von D, maybe even a Becca highlighter I have. Like Scene and Supersonic are nice as well, but just, I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm gonna get rid of it. One of the biggest product regrets that I have. Definitely one of the biggest product regrets. I see another thing I think I'm gonna get rid of. This is from Urban Decay as well. This is the Naked on the Run palette set thing. So this was a set that came with a eyeliner, a mascara, a lip gloss, the 5 eyeshadows, highlighter, blush, bronzer, way too orange, way too pink, useless. Like, useless. And then these, like, they're not bad quality, but my god, I think I used them like 3 times maybe. Even just swatching them now, I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't have that overwhelming love for them. Like, sometimes, you know, when you swatch something and you really enjoy it, like you immediately want to put it all over your face. You're like, I love this. This, I swatch it and I'm like, eh. Like, I'm just so, I don't think I would miss this if it's gone. Like, I cannot remember the last time I used this. So, it's too bulky, I don't use it, it's gone. Okay, so that's 4 things. 4 things I'm getting rid of so far. That's good. Progress, man. Progress. I feel like sometimes people feel like everything has to be done in one fell swoop. And things can take time. It can be hard to let go. It can be hard. I have this little, this is a Anastasia quad. These are shadows that I picked. I'm not getting rid of this, but I gathered everything. So these are some Anastasia shadows. They're pretty good. I don't use them that often because usually I'm using other shadows, but I like them. I think I have some more Anastasia. Yes. I have a few more Anastasias, and this is a MAC. This is an old MAC quad I have, but I couldn't get another Anastasia quad, so I ended up, this one's a MAC shadow, that's Omega, but these other 3 are Anastasia shadows. So I'm gonna keep that one. Kind of all over the place in the palette mountain. This is Urban Decay's Pulp Fiction palette, so I did depot one of the shadows. That would be Vengeance, which is in one of my Z palettes, which I'll get to because I think I'm actually going to be decluttering some of my Z palette stuff. But as you can see, I use Righteous. I've been using that one. That's a really good shade to set my eyeshadow primer. It's just, I love the formula of this palette. It's just so easy to use. They're just like so pigmented. Oh, man, these eyeshadows are just no joke. They're no joke. I wish every Urban Decay eyeshadow was as good as these ones. Definitely keeping Pulp Fiction. The only complaint I have with that palette is that it's not larger, because it's really that good. A few more, trying to be careful here. This is my super dirty Modern Renaissance palette. This packaging is horrible. It's just so easy to get dirty. My Modern Renaissance palette is also really well used. Really well used. I clearly like this palette, so that's not going anywhere. The nice thing about doing this is I can see how many palettes I've really hit pan on. I have this old cardboard palette from Stila. This is the In the Moment palette. It's pretty. Cherish the beauty of the moment. So you can see beautiful shades in here, but like it looks almost untouched because it's pretty much untouched. I bought this when they were getting rid of them and they were on sale because my thing used to be quantity over quality, and so when I would just stock like sales and I would just buy everything because I thought I needed to have a lot instead of just having stuff that I liked, which was not smart. I've definitely learned a lot since then. One of these shades I liked swatching it, like just so here's a few select swatches from that palette. So that gold shade, that one, that's nice. But I feel like I have a lot of things that are like that. This is old. This is old. This is old. Part of me wants to keep it, which is so stupid because I've like never used this. Yeah, I'm getting rid of it. I'm getting rid of it. I'm gonna go through so many makeup wipes. So many makeup wipes. My hand is going to be raw after this. It's for the greater good. The greater good. Alright, so this is Sephora. My hand's a little wet here. This is one custom palette I've had for a little while. Odd assortment of shades, but they're decent. I'll hang on to that for now. The Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. You guys probably have seen this thing a few times, just maybe a handful. So that's my Sweet Peach palette. I do like this actually. I do like this a lot.